Welcome back to another episode of Sal and Pals Go to the Movies. I'm here with my friend Touly. Say hi, Touly.
Hey, guys.
And today we're going to be reviewing Aquaman. Just a fair warning, there's going to be spoilers up ahead, so you've been warned. Arthur Curry learns that he is the heir to the underground kingdom of Atlantis and must step forward to lead his people and be a hero to the world. I'm going to start off this review by saying that there's some pros and some cons, mostly some cons that I had with this movie. First of all, I really enjoyed this movie because of the scenery that it described under the water, the new world of Atlantis that we didn't see before. We just got glimpses of it. To me, it seemed like a fantasy movie aspect of it that I really enjoyed. All the creatures that we saw. We knew that in the cartoon in the 60s, Aquaman, he rode the seahorse, but in this movie, we see seahorses with legs. So that was kind of like, how am I going to take this? But actually, I kind of enjoyed it because the creativity behind the creatures and stuff, and then especially the ships, some of the ships who resemble turtles and stuff like that. So to me, it was a nice creativity behind this. You know, we didn't see this in the comic, or recently we've seen them in a few comics because they want to link the movie into it, but the old comics never really had these kind of aspects in them. We just saw like actual seahorses and sharks and stuff like that, which we did see some sharks and some whales that weren't fantasy. They were actually true to their form. But I think that's as far as I go, that the movie kind of made a positive impact on me, other than we saw a few characters that we seen in the comic, like Black Manta. We saw Mera, we saw most of the people from Atlantis, and they touched upon them. But that's as far as they reached, which I actually wanted for them to reach a little deeper. And that's where it brings me to my cons. One of it was the character backstory. Aquaman's character, we just got a glimpse of him back in Justice League, but in this one, which is supposed to be his standalone movie, we thought they were going to dive deeper into his background story. To me, it didn't seem like he was the main focus. It seemed like his mom was the main focus in the movie. Other characters like Mera, Black Manta, and even the king, and then the prince, and everything else except Arthur Curry. For me, Aquaman wasn't really explained. We saw him as a kid, then we jumped to when he was an adult. I never saw what I wanted to see, the awkward teen moments, the years when he was getting in trouble, you know. Also, when he was training with his teacher, we never got to see more than just a few flashbacks to it, you know. So to me, that really left me wanting more. Moving on to my next point, how did Black Manta end up working for the bad guys? I mean, you know, from Atlantis, like, this didn't make sense to me, especially since Black Manta hates Aquaman. Wouldn't he hate the people from Atlantis? It didn't really make sense to me. I'm like, and I felt like this awkward thing. I was like, wait, how did you guys get together? I'm like, do you guys have like 1-800 number, you know, for bad guys to team up? I'm like, this didn't make sense to me. I really wanted to find something. Maybe somebody from Atlantis saved Black Manta before he escaped the submarine when his dad was there, or did something, and that's how they ended up teaming up. There's always going to be a confrontation period between the two sides, but then they'll be like, hey, you know, if we work together, we can benefit off this sort of weird friendship that we're going to establish now. That's what I would have wanted to see. And for them to just to give them Atlantis technology, like, hey, here's this fucking cannon that can blow shit up. No, I'm like, they wouldn't do that, because it's like this whole thing about giving weapons to somebody that could use it against your own people. It's like not a good strategy, especially since, you know, we're talking about war times, you know. The only reference that we got for Justice League was the Steppenwolf incident that Arthur Curry fought Steppenwolf. Yes and no, but couldn't you at least mention the other metahumans out there, the Flash, Wonder Woman, especially Batman, who was kind of instrumental in creating the Justice League? They actually just left everything out. I was like, no, you at least touch upon it, because in other movies you touched upon it. Maybe touch upon Cyborg. You know, we want to see more that leads into the other movies, which, you know, I don't know if they're still doing them, but the way this movie came out, I hope they stop making them. Just to point it out, it's not that all the scenes that in the movie were really to my liking. There was one scene in the desert that kind of threw me off. It was especially when they were walking after they jumped off the plane and they're walking through the barren desert, which is the Sahara. The color of the desert and the sky kind of like gave me this vibe like, okay, you know, this is the ideal scenery, the blue sky and the sand, which is clean and everything. But at the same time, I didn't see them feeling the heat. Also, there was a scene in the background where I noticed there were two sand hills in the background that kind of, in my eye, it shifted as they were standing still. To me, that it broke the illusion. it broke the special effects illusion. I'm like, hey, either that's a green screen or that was an After Effect thing they did, and whoever did it, shame on you, because I kind of caught it, so it threw me off. In a sense, some scenes were great, the underwater scenes especially, but some scenes that they could have gotten really easy on the surface kind of like left me wanting more. So I guess with that, you guys know how I feel about this movie, so I'm going to throw it over to Touly and see how he either liked this movie or disliked the movie.
So for me, the one thing that I would say this movie had going for it was the visuals. I thought it was very mesmerizing. I thought they captured that aspect very well, particularly when you saw Atlantis or all these hidden kingdoms that existed in the sea. It was very vibrant and very technological, despite the existence being underwater. So to me, that's the thing that stood out the most. Wherever they went and they showcase a new kingdom or a new area where they had history with Atlantis or the people living there, I at least can applaud that, because I can appreciate the amount of effort that went into creating this world and making it not just believable, but somewhere where you will want to go as well and visit if you had the opportunity. So that I applaud the movie for. Another thing that I liked about this film, I wouldn't say all the action scenes. The one where Aquaman and Mera, it was when they went to Italy, and I think that was when Black Manta and some of the goons, they appeared to capture Mera and get Aquaman. And it was that scene where you saw them chasing Mera around the town, and of course Aquaman was fighting against Black Manta at the same time. And I love the cinematography of that scene because it felt like a video game. It felt sort of like a video game environment or shot to me. Particularly, it reminded me of like Uncharted. There was some gameplay in Uncharted where the scenes shifted like that from like the background to the foreground, and you saw different characters, interacting as they move progressively closer to the screen. That I enjoyed. I guess for someone who don't know a lot about Aquaman, I at least got some knowledge now as to how he became Aquaman, or how he might have retrieved the trident, ultimately became the solution to all the problem. But that in of itself, I can question, because it seemed like everybody looked at this weapon as being the one peacemaker of it all. And once Aquaman retrieved it, then everybody just like bowed to him immediately. And I mean, I guess if that's how, maybe it's just like these people came to look upon this weapon like holding so much merit that whoever wields it, you must obey them or something. But I wish there would have been some sort of resistance still, maybe with some of the individuals who were seen as antagonists to the film. Maybe not so much that they rebel immediately, but show a little twitch in their eye or their facial expression to show that, what, you might have the trident now, but I'm still not going to follow you or something. But it seems that at the end of the movie, everybody was going to follow him. So I saw it both ways, but at the same time, I would have liked to see some resistance. Now, onto some of the stuff that I didn't like. The one thing that jumped out to me were the transitions. I feel like if I were to sum up Aquaman, it was a bunch of scenes just shot and thrown together, and for the most part, they weren't sewed together very well. You would get one scene of Aquaman dealing with whatever, like for example, when they discovered the item that would reveal the message to where the location of the trident was, and then you see them jump scene to like Mera and Aquaman on an aircraft, things like that. I wish there was like a transition in between versus them just shooting these individual scenes and just like throw them together and just hope that you could piece it together yourself. Like for me, you have to have good transition, and I think this is something that the film was lacking for the most part. And I only use that one as an example, but there were many instances where this happened, where it just seemed like you just saw a scene jump from one to the next without nothing in between to kind of like segue you in a more smooth fashion, I suppose. So that's one of the biggest complaint I have. And this sort of goes back to what Sal said earlier too, about them focusing too much on too many characters and not focusing more on Aquaman's origin. I think that sort of relates to how long the movie was too. The movie was about 2 hours and 30 minutes in length, and I wish they would have focused at least half of the film on Aquaman's origin, from him being a kid to where he stood now, versus giving us the flashback sort of approach, where he was already an adult and you used to see many flashbacks to explain how he was able to learn how to fight in one flashback, or how he remembered his mother in this instance, stuff like that. I felt like they just used the bulk of this time trying to do too much, focus on like Mera or the Aquaman and Orm, who eventually became Ocean Master, and also the guy who became Black Manta. On Black Manta himself, I found that to be very ironic that he wanted vengeance on Aquaman because Aquaman did not help him save his father when they both realized that what they were doing initially was wrong. And even Aquaman pointed this out too, like, don't let me see you doing these sort of stuff again, them killing innocent people like that. And because of that, the guy who became Black Manta held a grudge against Aquaman. I didn't find his motivation to be strong enough to want to go back and hunt Aquaman for this. To give an example of something that they could have done instead, like if there was some sort of miscommunication between the guy and Aquaman, somehow the father ended up dying. Like for instance, we look at the Spider-Man ordeal with the Green Goblin, with Harry Osborn and Norman Osborn. There was some sort of miscommunication. Like there was a piece missing that made the son hold a grudge against Spider-Man. And that way we get some sort of motivation. We understand why the son went after Spider-Man. Here in this instance, Aquaman was right in front of the father and the son, and everybody realized that them being the pirates who ended up infiltrating the submarine and killing these people on the ship. How can you come to some sort of mentality that what you were doing is going to justify you hunting Aquaman like that? So that didn't make sense to me. So, and to throw on top of that, the comedy in this film, I felt for the most part was forced. It didn't come off natural, and for them to even throw this onto Black Manta himself while he was crafting his gear for the confrontation with Aquaman, that made him go through this comedy sequence. That didn't make me feel like he was like a badass sort of character. It's like, why are you throwing some comedy into this character right now? He doesn't need comedy. He's supposed to be this guy who seeks vengeance. So to me, that even lowered his character even more from my perspective. To me, in the end, I didn't really see like a villain that stood out and made me feel like, okay, this guy is going to be the guy who's going to put Aquaman in his place. And because of that, I never felt that Aquaman was ever in any danger of losing. Like the only way he could have lost was lose to himself, for him always blaming himself for being the reason his mother died. Because of that, like I feel like the villains in this film wasn't depicted as being very strong. And even then, like at the end of the film, again, spoiler alert, when the mother rised up and showcased herself to everybody that she was still alive, particularly Ocean Master or the brother Orm, like he just pretty much, he accepted it. He was like, okay, my mother's still alive and I could just stop fighting. Again, the whole solution to this film, I don't feel like it could have been something else, but I think it's just the way it led up to it. It could have been done in a more meaningful manner that made how the movie ended. It would have made it more justifiable if the setup was more appropriate. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. I mean, other than that, did I enjoy the film? I say I did enjoy the film. I think it helped that I didn't know much about Aquaman, so I went into the movie with a more open-minded, willing to just accept information to know who this character was. And even then, like, to be quite honest, I came to appreciate Mera's character more because I could relate more to her character in that she was put in a position where it was difficult to, stand by the half-brother side or her father's side, but want to help out Aquaman as well. She even said it herself in the movie where she was like, sometimes you have to do stuff that your heart is against or something like that. So I think a lot of people can relate to that versus maybe what Aquaman's going through, because like I said, for him being the main hero in this film, for them not to actually show us rather than just tell us, because they kept on reiterating the whole notion of, oh, it's because of me being born that my mother died. And they keep just using this over and over as the line to get us to be behind Aquaman's action. Versus Mera, you see everything in front of you, like everything she's going through, what she put on the line to help out Aquaman. And because of that, I came to appreciate Mera more so than Aquaman himself. If anything, this movie encouraged me to find out more about the character Mera than Aquaman. Yeah, overall, I say I enjoyed it, but it could have been better, as Sal said earlier.
Okay, well, I mean, I'm glad that you saw it that way, and especially since you noticed that Mera was catered in a good light. I'm happy that you saw it that way. I'm a big fan of Mera. This movie, to me, I really want to put some points that you cleared up there, especially this Sicily action scene. That was amazing. I really wanted to believe that it was done in a one-shot movement, but I know better. But I really like that they went from the background to the foreground and back and forth between the two characters, Arthur and Mera. I enjoyed that action scene. Well, let me talk talk about some characters that were in this movie, because you made the reference to Spider-Man and the Green Goblin, and we have William Dafoe in this movie, who is the teacher of Arthur, which is his character is Voico. Just having him in this movie, he's transcending the Marvel Universe and DC Universe, so that's kind of funny to me when an actor does that, has two characters in the both cinematic universes. Also, I'm not sure if you guys saw this, but we had Dolph Lundgren in this movie. He was King Nereus. That to me was like something that stood out, because I mean, recently I went to see the Creed movie, so it kind of made sense, like saying like, hey, I've seen you before recently kind of thing, so it stood out in my mind. But let's talk about the whole story about this. The legend that comes into this is the King Arthur legend, especially since Arthur Curry is named Arthur after the king and the legend, because that's what his dad said in the beginning of the movie. But I don't know if you guys see this, and I think it was like sort of a cop-out. It was the trident was the symbol of the sword and the stone, and once he achieved it, he became automatic king, and that's why a lot of people just basically didn't question it and follow him. To me, that was sort of a cop-out, and I really agree with Touly that a lot of people should be divided in this kingdom, saying that I agree, I'm going to go with the half-breed, or other people be like, I don't agree, I'm not going to go with the half-breed because I don't follow him and stuff like that. I wanted to see more of that struggle. I mean, because of course, not everybody's going to basically what they're told without rebellion. The other thing that stood out to me, I don't know if people saw it this way, was that Arthur's mom played the part of Lady of the Lake. When she came back, everybody was astonished that she came back, she was still alive and stuff like that. So those are the two references that I saw in this movie to the King Arthur legend. Back to another scene that I didn't really enjoy and basically made me laugh, and I think I heard other people giggle during the fight between the two brothers, fire in the fire pit, or the circle of fire, whatever they called it. There was an octopus playing drums, and I just remembered, I'm like, The Little Mermaid, Under the Sea. I'm like, that song stood out. I was like, it's like, is it a joke intentionally put there? I want to say that it is a joke, but if it wasn't, I'm like, these people really missed out on having an Easter egg there, Black Manta, that's the whole thing, and I really like that Touly pointed this out, how Black Manta came to be. There had to be more than just, hey, you didn't help my dad. Yeah, and the whole thing, how Black Manta got his weapons and he developed it. I wanted him to soak in the anger more. Like, this is what an evil villain does. He soaks in this hatred, and the more longer he stays on it, the more he, this character gets built, like he has to grow to hate Aquaman more and more, not just, hey, oh, you killed my dad, I'm gonna sit on my boat and just feel sad, and then, oh, look, I got weapons, I'm gonna kill you now. I've seen a lot of superheroes movies take that route recently, and I really don't enjoy that, and I really want them to build the evil guy, the bad guy, the villains the same way they do build the superheroes. And this is how the comic does it. You build the superhero the way you do it, but you also have to build the villain, because they have to basically rise up the same way in story. Super villains are evil because they have a tragic backstory, and that story needs to be told. Let's go back to this movie. That octopus scene was out of place. It was a funny joke, but if they didn't really do it on purpose, I don't know why it was there. I don't agree that he should have been casted in this movie because he didn't fit the part. To me, he doesn't really seem like that kind of guy who's a teacher or mentor. Other than that, let's end this review by giving it a final grade. Touly?
I'll give it a 6.5 out of 10. Like I said, I enjoyed it, again, for some of the action scenes, the visual effects, very well done there. Story-wise, could have been told better, and the comedy, like I said, forced for the most part. And I wish I would have seen a better character development for Black Manta versus them trying to make his character's motivation seem questionable to begin with, and to throw in that comedy aspect on top of his character when he should have been a serious character to be with throughout the entire film. But based on the after credit scene, it seems that we are gonna see more of Black Manta in future DC movies. So hopefully they'll handle his character with more care going forward. But overall, like I said, I enjoyed the film though.
Well, I'm glad you brought up the after credit scene, because I mean, without Black Manta, we don't have Aquaman. It's the same thing as Batman and the Joker. They're the two main characters, the superhero and the villain. They go hand in hand. So for this movie, my grade is a 6 out of 10, a little lower than yours, but I totally agree with everything you said. This movie could have been better, but I still kind of enjoyed it, but some characters could have been more focused on and developed better. Okay, so that does it for this movie review of Aquaman. Please join us next time when we review Escape Room. Social media is down in the description, and hit us up if you have any questions. And remember, keep watching movies.